Brought to you by Capital One. Capital One wants to build a better bank, one that feels and acts nothing like a typical bank. It's why they're reimagining banking by offering accounts with no fees or minimums and one of the best savings rates in America. You can open a Capital One account from anywhere in 5 minutes. That's banking reimagined. Capital One, what's in your wallet? Capital One, N.A.
Hey, college football fans, Kirk Herbstreit here. Whether you're home gating or tailgating this season, score big on Game Day Eats with Eckridge Smoked Sausage. And now you can enter the 2019 Road to the National Championship sweepstakes. You can join me at the College Football Playoff National Championship in Santa Clara, California for a chance to throw to win $1 million. To enter and learn more, visit EckridgeFootball.com. No purchase necessary, void where prohibited. Sweepstakes ends 12/20/18. Contest rules online.
All right, people, listen up. We have a big favor to ask, and we promise it won't take up too much of your time. You know our show is supported by some fantastic sponsors, right? Well, we'd love to hear your feedback. Head to podcast.study and fill out a short, anonymous survey. That's it. We swear. Again, that's podcast.study.
We're all looking for clarity in our lives. We're just going to find out when it's going to get there. Glad you're with us on a Wednesday morning. Golic and Wingo, ESPN Radio and ESPN News, presented by Progressive Insurance. All phone guests will join us on the Shell Pennzoil Performance Line. Among the guests we'll have coming up in just a little bit, Jimbo Fisher, head coach of Texas A&M, will join us. We'll also be joined in studio by John Fox, former head coach of several teams in the NFL, the Panthers, the Bears, and the Denver Broncos. He's the newest member of our team here. He'll join us in studio. And Touchdown Tommy Waddle, as he was referred to, which I didn't know. He said it was back in high school. From ESPN Radio in Chicago, a longtime Bears receiver, will join us as well. You good, Junior?
I'm good. I am still reeling. So for anyone that's just joining us now, ESPN.com puts out their power rankings. We're 1 week through the NFL season. We're in the witching hour of the week for week 2.
Yeah.
And so ESPN.com put out their list 1 through 32 power rankings.
Yeah.
You took great umbrage with the way they constructed their list.
No, I don't take great umbrage. I want to be clear.
Sounds like you take umbrage.
They have their parameters. I have different parameters.
Well, you disagree with their parameters.
They are entitled to their parameters. I would just choose different qualifiers.
All right. So you disagree with their parameters. You've put your own into this process.
Correct.
And so we've got your top 5 NFL teams after week 1 based on 3 very specific criteria.
3 very specific criteria. Number 1, week 1, you can't lose or tie.
I want winners. I want people that want to win.
So that's the bottom line. If you're going to be in the top 5 on my list, you have to have won a game. Okay?
No losers.
You can't have lost week 1 and be in the top 5 in the NFL. So 16 teams automatically.
There you go.
Oh, 17 actually, considering the tie. So I guess 17 teams.
So no ties in your world either. You got to be a winner.
You got to be a winner. So Bill Parcells said it best. You are what your record says you are. That's it, plain and simple. And this is a week-to-week list. This is not a projection of where I think this team will be in 7 or 8 weeks. This is not who I think is making the playoffs. This is very simply the teams that played best the first week of the season. That's it. And it shouldn't be that controversial or hard. But it will be for people, and I don't understand why.
Will be. It already is.
Number 5, Number 5, I gave to the Jets.
And the room was absolutely on fire. And what's even crazier in this is there was some last-minute tinkering to this list, and it's my understanding. The Jets were not on the original list.
That is correct.
Wow.
And then I had to look at myself by the criteria and say, if I'm going by the criteria which I actually believe in, you get a rookie quarterback that throws a pick 6 and comes back from that beautifully on his first pass. You have offensive, defensive, and special team scores. On the road, you take down a team and score the final 31 points on the Monday night stage. That's a really impressive win. I don't care how you want to slice it. That's a really impressive win.
That third quarter, they outscored 14 of their 16 games from last season in one quarter.
I mean, it shouldn't be controversial. They played really well week 1. It means nothing going into week 2 because week 1 is done. That's all I'm saying. This is week 1. Done. The Jets were number 5. At 4, the Philadelphia Eagles for a couple of reasons. Okay. Number 1, they found a way to win with the backup quarterback. Their defense played very well, goal line stand, against what we believe is a quality opponent, the Atlanta Falcons. We'll find out whether or not it's a quality opponent as this thing goes on forward. And again, they've lost another player, Deion Jones, their Pro Bowl linebacker, to injured reserve. They're hoping he's coming back, but Keanu Neal is also lost. So that was 5 and 4. Are we ready for number 3?
I guess. Ready is a relative term at this point, man.
This is another team
Number 3
that I had to think about long and hard, but if I'm being honest about it, they had to be on the list. And that's the Baltimore Ravens.
Whoa!
Now, I understand that they played the Buffalo Bills. which means you have to look at everything in perspective, right?
However,
what do you want a good team to do?
Win.
And what do you want them to do against a bad team?
Not lose.
No, you want to destroy them. When you have a bad team, you want to step on their throats and basically take them out and say, look, we're a much better team and we're not going to let up until the whistle stops. Is that not what the Ravens did?
That was a college football style butt whooping.
Correct. Let me be clear. Buffalo was so bad or Baltimore was so good, the Bills didn't have a first down in the first half. That's only the 7th time that's happened in the last 10 years in the NFL. Oh, and by the way, look what happens when you surround Joe Flacco with good receivers. He played pretty well, right? They've got a running game in Alex Collins. So if I'm being honest by the list, that the parameters that I put around this, they played great.
Our own Louis Riddick was very high, said this is going to be a banner year for Joe Flacco going into the season. So far, so good.
Hey, listen, if I'm on the same side as Louis Riddick, I'm feeling pretty good about that. So again, Jets 5, Eagles 4, Ravens 3.
Real quick before we move on,
Yeah.
Trey, I hope you're okay with me admitting this on the air.
Yeah.
Ravens weren't on the original
Correct.
list either.
Correct. You're right. Because I had to be honest about the parameters, and I wasn't in my original list.
Where does NFL.com have the Ravens?
Efforting standby.
That's important.
That is important because, again, context of this list, the Jets at number 5 on your list, 26th on ESPN.com, behind the Giants.
Let me ask you a question then. Do you think the Jets had one of the worst performances of Week 1?
No.
Did they have one of the best performances of Week 1?
Yeah.
Is it a week-to-week list?
I think it is.
There you go.
ESPN.com, for the record, has the Ravens at 12.
12.
Ravens at 12. Okay. At number 2.
Number 2.
The Minnesota Vikings.
Oh, yeah.
All right?
Yeah,
Right? It's hard to argue.
Yeah,
it's hard to argue. I'm
makes
not
sense.
trying to be I'm just going off on what I saw and how it applied. Jimmy Garoppolo is a good quarterback. That defense snuffed him out. I believe the word you used, one of the weirdest people of all time, Harrison Smith.
Yes.
Came through with a
Big time weirdo.
huge interception. And if we're looking at what we want out of Kirk Cousins, that throw to Kyle Rudolph, the tight end.
Big time.
That throw to Stephon Diggs. That's exactly why you paid him $84 million, right? To make those kind of throws. We knew the defense was going to be there. The defense was able to shut down a guy that had never lost as a starting quarterback before, even though I do not believe wins and losses are a quarterback stat. So Jimmy G had never tasted defeat before. Goes into Minnesota. It's a very good defense with a very good running game and a new quarterback. Minnesota Vikings have to be on that list.
He got a taste of it, all right.
Yeah, you got a taste of it.
All right.
So, again, we have the Jets at 5, Eagles at 4, Ravens at 3, Vikings at 2.
So many good teams left.
So many good teams. We ready for number 1?
Number 1.
Based only on their Week 1 performance, the number 1 team, according to my specific parameters, would be the Los Angeles Rams. Again, let's go back to the parameters and context. Where were they Week 1?
Near the top.
No, where were they? Where did they play
were in
the game?
Oakland.
Oh, geographically, they were in Oakland.
Top. Geographically, they were in Oakland. Was there a home team more amped for their season opener than Raider Nation in the black hole with John Gruden returning?
Didn't look like it.
Before the game. They
Yeah,
were,
oh, yeah,
they
no.
were
That's what I
hyped.
mean.
Yeah. And they had a 13-10 lead at the half. So what did the Rams do on the road against an absolutely... Look, the black hole crowd is rabid every week. They were off the charts rabid this past week. They outscore the Raiders 23-0 after halftime. They get defensive scores from their one of their new acquisitions, Marcus Peters. And Ndamukong Suh and Aaron Donald played dominant. They forced Derek Carr into 3 interceptions. And Todd Gurley, their best player, has a really, really good game. Jared Goff did what they asked him to do. Manage the offense, find the open receiver, don't make the costly turnover, which is exactly what Derek Carr did. Look, they've got all the pieces in Los Angeles. Brandon Cooks didn't get a touchdown, but I think he had 8 catches for 87 yards.
Oh, yeah.
So he had well over 13 or 14 yards a catch. It's exactly what you want. So by those parameters, the Rams were probably the most impressive team going forward.
So just to be clear, Trey's top 5. Rams number 1.
Based on Week 1 performance alone.
Oh, we got to go out. Rams top 5. Rams number 1.
Yep.
Vikings number 2. Baltimore number 3. Eagles number 4. And the Jets at 5. Which means that in Trey's top 5 is not The Kansas City Chiefs.
Yeah, they were there in the mix.
The Jacksonville Jaguars.
Again, my problem with that is that they could not find a way to end the game on offense.
The Tampa Bay Buccaneers, based on this list, I am shocked.
That's a fair argument.
And the New England Patriots, you, my friend, you're knocking on the devil's door with that one.
Listen, if you ask the Patriots, they'll say the exact same thing. We won, but we didn't play very well. They had a team in the Texans that they were dominating and they couldn't put them away. I mean, that came down to a one-possession game, right?
It was.
It ended up being, and who was the most dominant team on that field for most of the game? The New England Patriots. When you're the New England Patriots and you got a team on the ropes, snuff them out.
Step on the throat factor is big on your list. I can tell this.
It is.
It's a big factor in your list.
When you have somebody down, finish them. And the Patriots didn't do that. Now, again, the Patriots are my projection to go to the AFC Championship and the Super Bowl, but in Week 1, they played okay.
Projections are for nerds, though.
Projections are for other lists.
Mike,
we are doing this on reality.
Do you want to know the two teams that were on the original list?
Yeah, all right, so here's the backdrop of all this. Again, Trey's list, about, I'd say a half hour ago, received some last-minute adjustments.
I had to be honest with the parameters, and I wasn't in my first initial pass.
So we heard about, in the initial pass of this, we heard that the Jets weren't on the original list and the Ravens weren't on the original list, correct?
Correct.
Who got taken off the list?
The Chiefs. And the Pats.
Wow. Wow.
Yeah.
So the greatest quarterback in the history of pro football and one of the hottest young up-and-comers in offense that is quite literally lightning in a bottle in Kansas City, not good enough for Trey's list.
It's not about a player. It's about a team. It's about a team. Look, if you're asking me who the best player was Week 1, it's Tyreek Hill. It's not even close. I mean, Fitzpatrick would be close, but not close enough. Tyreek Hill was the best player Week 1.
It's always fascinating the way people build out these lists because you look at this list and it's merit-based, correct? I think that's the one thing. That's the one thing you want overall. Which,
by the way, Tampa Bay, you have every right to be mad.
Yeah,
every right to be mad.
Absolutely. But you look at this list, and there's no way that you would say that right now, on any field of any sort, you'd be picking the Jets over the Patriots.
No, that's not what this list is. It's not they're a better team overall. They, in my opinion, they played a better, cleaner game Week 1 than the Patriots did.
There we go. Trey's top 5.
I mean, it's based on. I mean, it's funny. It's funny if this list will be controversial because it's based basically on how well teams played, right? And the Buccaneers, what sort of hurt them is they had the big lead. And then that came down to a one-possession game. I mean, they let them back in the game. They scored 48, and they had to hang on to win. I mean, that's a problem.
You want winners, but really more than anything else, I think you want throat steppers.
I want domination from start to finish. I want a team that goes out there and imposes their will on the other team. And if you play against a good team, find a way to win. You play against a bad team, finish them.
60 minutes.
Finish them. 60 minutes. Play to the echo of the whistle. Do you want to do your list now, or do we?
Well, see, my list is total. So I had a sealed list of the teams that I thought you would pick.
And again, by sealed, he means he folded a piece of paper in half.
I mean, it was locked inside of a chest. It's basically think the briefcase from Pulp Fiction.
Okay, at least not the briefcase from the Oscars a couple years ago because that thing was not sealed well enough.
No, not at all. I was completely wrong. See, I thought I went based on winners. I thought I went based on that. I didn't realize it was so dependent on Week 1 performance because I went.
It's on how you play. It has to be on how you play.
I had a little mix of that. I had Green Bay at 5 based on the singularity of the Aaron Rodgers performance.
I can understand that.
I had Kansas City at 4, was big on Patrick Mahomes.
I
had the Eagles at 3, the Rams at 2, and I had New England at 1. And New England got my, they're still a team I picked to play, probably play in the Super Bowl.
But again, that can't be part of this. For me, that can't be part of the discussion.
And that was my misunderstanding of the list. So I did not give you enough credit for sticking to your criteria.
That's why I had to change it because I was honest with myself. I wasn't sticking to the criteria. If I'm sticking basically to how they played Week 1, to me, those were the teams that played the best, start to finish, top to bottom, offense, defense, and special teams. So there you go.
There you have it.
We'll see if that sticks and how much it'll change Week 2. Because again, this list should change every week. Golic and Wingo, presented by 1-800-Flowers.com. Nothing makes up more for your football obsession like a surprise from 1-800-Flowers.com. To order a dozen multicolored roses plus an extra bouquet in a vase for just $29.99. Go to 1-800-Flowers.com/ESPN. All right, time to turn our attention to college football now, and we are delighted to be joined by Texas A&M head coach Jimbo Fisher, joining us on the Shell Pennzoil Performance Line, taking synthetic motor oil performance to a whole new level. Make the switch to Pennzoil Synthetics today. Coach, thanks for being with us. First of all, I know you're moving on, but how crazy was that game in College Station Saturday night against Clemson?
It was a tremendous environment. I mean, you had two great teams that played very hard and competed, and it came down to the last play. But the atmosphere, the environment, the culture in which the A&M people have here, it was very special. It really was.
Coach, now you come off the highs of that game. We know on down the road in September 22nd, you've got Alabama, but Louisiana Monroe comes up this week. How do you turn the focus back on an opponent that can be very easy to overlook at times?
Well, I mean, I think which locker room you want? You want the one you just experienced, or you want the one you had in the first week? And also seeing that the many opportunities in which you had to execute in some critical situations. We have to coach a little better in those situations, and then they have to play a little better. And you can get to that level, and I think hopefully that'll drive us from a hunger standpoint to understand that we're capable of doing things, but we have to go out and finish. And hopefully, our practices have been good this week, and hopefully we'll continue through the weekend.
Texas A&M football coach, head coach Jimbo Fisher with us. In the NFL, Jimbo, we always talk about a game like this as being a trap game because you know what's on the one side of it, you know what's on the next side of it. So all kinds of tricks people use, sometimes motivation to make sure they don't fall for the trap game in between. How are you making sure your players don't take the trap this week?
Truth, point blank. Again, goes back to which one you want. And we have plenty of mistakes that we have to fix, and we have to grow as a team. We're in the infant stages of growing here. And these are the next steps we have to take. And if we want to be the program and the team that we want to be and think we can be, you can't look past it because it doesn't matter who you play. Your opponent's faceless, and you have to look at it that way. I mean, I know it's harder. People say it's harder. It's really not if you have a mindset to do it. And, hopefully that this weekend was enough that our players see that, we left a lot on that field, and we have to clean that up, and we need to get back to work.
Talking to Jimbo Fisher, Texas A&M head coach in the Shell Pennzoil Performance Line. Kellen Mond, your quarterback, had a banner day this weekend against one of the better defenses in college football. You've developed a lot of great quarterbacks over the years, going back to your time at Florida State. What are the things you see in Kellen Mond that are in line with some of the guys you've coached before?
I think, first of all, is competitiveness. I mean, very, very dedicated competitor. And what I mean by that, willing to prepare to compete. A lot of guys want to compete on Saturdays, but he puts the time in, he works. He likes the whys of the game. He studies. He's a very tough guy. He's a very competitive guy. And he has the arm talents and all those things. But to me, those intangibles about the ability to compete, the ability to affect other people, and the ability to put the time in to prepare, I think are very, those are ground roots things that you can't ever overlook. I don't care what it is. And he does all those things.
A&M head football coach Jimbo Fisher with us. And, Jimbo, this is one of those odd questions, but Forbes has now rated Texas A&M as the most valuable program in college sports. When you hear that, what does that mean to you?
Well, I think it means dedication. I think it means resources. I think it means people that athletics is very important. But as you know from A&M, everything here is very important. It's a top 20 institution in the country. Great. The people and the culture and the environment are ridiculous. I mean, as far as their love and passion for the university, but also that they invest in their kids. They invest back into the university for the kids to have personal development, academic development, and athletic development. And that, as I say, that Aggie network, when they're all done, is special. And I mean, it's what it means. I mean, the people here truly give back, and they want the experience for the next generation to be the same as they had during their generation.
I'm interested when you look at that because you came from a marquee program in college football in Florida State and one of the biggest recruiting hotbeds, and now you go quite literally to the next. I mean, a lot of people would argue those are 1 and 2 on the list. What are the similarities and differences you've seen between two of the biggest football areas in the country?
Well, I mean, I think, listen, Florida is tremendous football. Texas is tremendous football. I mean, they're usually 1A, 1B when you get right down to it. I think that, in the state of Texas, the one thing they do is the resources and the financial backing are tremendous in the high school programs and the peewee programs and the organizations. And I think from that development, number of people that are involved in things that go is tremendous. Florida has unbelievable athletes. I think that the players, the love for the game is just as good. So, I mean, it's 6 one way, half dozen, however you want to take it. But in both places, football is very, very important. They take it very seriously, but it's not the end all. I mean, it's a very important thing, but there's a lot of other things that go into it, and the people in both places are tremendous.
A&M head football coach Jimbo Fisher with us in this college football talk, brought to you by Dr. Pepper. Get to your local Walmart today and grab some delicious ice-cold Dr. Pepper, the official drink of Fansville, now playing everywhere college football games are played. Side note, Dr. Pepper invented in Waco, Texas, not too far away from College Station. I'm sure Jimbo Fisher knows that. As a Baylor alum, I felt the need to point that out, Jimbo. But more importantly, again, as we said, you've got Louisiana Monroe coming up this Saturday. But again, then it's Tuscaloosa. And you were a former Nick Saban assistant. You were on his staff at LSU. He is 12-0 all-time against his former assistants. What is it about the Nick Saban code that seems so hard to crack?
Well, I just think he does build a great program. He's in a great situation. He's a great coach. They have great staff. They have great support there, and they have great players. And they build a culture that's about success. I mean, it's to a point like New England was. I mean, everybody says, in certain programs in college basketball, college baseball, college pro football, whatever it may be, that there's a culture of winning expectation, and you have to achieve that. It's not just about getting good players. It's about the whole encompassing program and the mindset, and that takes time to develop. And I don't know if many, we had a great one going on at Florida State. We won a national championship. We thought we were going to get to play them in a national championship that year, and they had, unfortunately, that return kick. But, they built a great program. They do a great job, and that's what we're going to do. That's why the time here that we want to build the culture that expects to win, how to win, and like you say, that's part of why you say this weekend, why do we overlook it? If we really want that, our players and our coaches, we have to understand how to keep developing that. And everybody has their infant stages of what they do, and they're just farther along than everybody else.
And you mentioned, Coach, you're in those infant stages right now. I think that Clemson game is going to go a long way towards developing that. But in the midst of that, I know when I turned on the game, I saw you hot down on the field, talking to officials. Yeah. Big-time controversial call with that fumble out of the back of the end zone. What are your thoughts on that rule overall?
Well, I mean, I just think here's the thing I think we got to be careful of in college football. We're in a billion-dollar business. And, and I think we need more camera action. I really do. On the goal lines, on the goalpost. We saw this weekend an obvious made field goal that was called bad. We saw that controversial goal, whether it was wrong or right. I mean, and I just had the passion that, we're at the end of a game. I mean, we're in a passionate business, and I wanted to try to stand up for our players and goes on. But I think from a technical standpoint, I think we can do things, even make it easier on replay and officials to be able to make those calls. Unless no one does anything on purpose, I don't believe that. And, like I say, coaches, we get mad, we're impassioned. It's a passionate sport. But I think I think we can put some technical things in that can eliminate those situations even better.
Jimbo Fisher with us this morning. We'll see what happens this weekend against Louisiana Monroe. And then again, we talked about that game coming up with Alabama. Jimbo, we appreciate you being with us. Thanks.
All right, great, guys. Thank you very much.
Support for the Golic and Wingo Show podcast comes from our friends at Rocket Mortgage by Quicken Loans. Let's talk about buying homes for a minute. Because of rising interest rates, there's a lot of unpredictability when it comes to buying a home these days. It's causing a whole lot of anxiety with folks. Well, our friends at Quicken Loans are doing something about it. They're calling it the power buying process, and here's how it works. Quicken Loans will verify your income, assets, and credit in less than 24 hours to give you a verified approval. This gives you the strength of a cash buyer. Then once you're verified, you qualify for their all-new exclusive Rate Shield approval. First, they lock your rate for up to 90 days while you shop. Now here's the best part. If rates go up, your rate stays the same. But if rates go down, your rate also drops. You win either way. It's the kind of thinking you'd expect from America's largest mortgage lender. To get started, go to rocketmortgage.com/Golic. Rate Shield approval only valid on certain 30-year purchase transactions. Additional conditions or exclusions may apply. Based on Quicken Loans data in comparison to public data record. Equal housing lender. Licensed in all 50 states. NMLSconsumeraccess.org number 3030.
When it comes to hiring, you don't have time to waste. You need help getting to your short list of qualified candidates fast. That's why you need Indeed.com. Post a job in minutes, set up screener questions, then zero in on qualified candidates using an intuitive online dashboard. And when you need to hire fast, accelerate your results with sponsored jobs. New users can try for free at Indeed.com/podcast. That's Indeed.com/podcast. Terms, conditions, and quality standards apply.
Glad you're with us. Golic and Wingo, ESPN Radio and ESPN News, presented by Progressive Insurance. Get in touch with us at the 1-800-Flowers.com Twitter feed at Golic and Wingo, or call in and we'll take your voicemails later. 860-506-5505. How do you feel about your football team heading into week 2 after week 1? Optimistic, pessimistic, or I don't know yet? Which, by the way, I don't know yet is always the right answer after week 1. Don't buy in too much and don't be too depressed. Nobody knows that more than our next guest joining us in studio giving us the straight talk, and that would be NFL analyst and former head coach of both the Panthers, the Bears, and the Broncos, John Fox. Straight talk. Best phones, best networks, no contracts. All right, John, straight talk right up. What did you think of Sam Darnold Monday night?
I thought he was special. To start the way he did, that was aggressive play call. And I know Jeremy and them, they went in with the idea they weren't going to baby him.
Right.
And you could see that. Now, it didn't start well, but his response and that reaction really for their whole football team was pretty impressive. And his performance moving forward was I thought, very, very, very impressive.
Jeremy Bates being the offensive coordinator for the Jets. And there was that shot on the sidelines right after he threw the pick six. joining the likes of Jameis Winston and Brett Favre, being the first quarterbacks to throw their first pass as an interception for a pick six, where Josh McCown was basically saying, don't change a thing. He was basically coaching the coach at this point with Jeremy Bates to make sure that they didn't change it. Because that shows how all in they are in this guy, right?
Oh, no doubt. Yeah, I talked to Josh McCown, who played for me in Carolina a ways back.
He played for everybody.
Yeah, but just a special guy, a special teammate, wonderful teammate. And, I could tell that I'm sure Jeremy was, man, I shouldn't have called that, shouldn't have put you in that position. And I won't use the words I'm sure Josh came across with, but he was like, forget that. All right, we're going to go on. We're going to stay aggressive. You keep calling it. And they did. I thought Jeremy did a great job, and Sam did a great job of executing.
How difficult is that as a coach in general? Because I know we were always taught as players, for us as an offensive line up front, if you don't stop a twist right away, you're going to see that all game. How difficult is it as a coach if something doesn't work like that right off the bat to find it in yourself to make sure you don't all of a sudden pull back on the gas?
Well, I think it probably set up to like the worst scenario it could be. I think they were anticipating man. It was a boot throwback, and well, the problem was they were playing zone, and Diggs did a great job of baiting them and seeing it, and it was a good break on the ball. And that ball has to travel a long ways in the air, so you're kind of hoping you get man and nobody's on that cat. So it's not what they got, and it kind of was what it was, and you got to go to the next play.
They certainly did. And again, I thought their overall performance was really good. They got offensive, defensive, and special team scores. They score the final 31 points of that game. They move on and get the big win. Okay, everybody loves to do this, John Fox, head coach, former NFL head coach, now joining us. Everyone likes to go off the charts after week one.
Yep.
As a football coach, whether you have suffered a devastating loss week one or an exhilarating win either in a comeback style or an absolutely beatdown, how important is it for you to make sure your players understand? Because a lot of these are young kids that are used to nothing but winning when they come out of college into the NFL, for them to say, guys, whatever that was, it doesn't mean squat going forward.
It really is. It's one of 16 games. I mean, if you get right down to it. And really in this league, whether you win by 1 or 21 or lose by 1 or 21, it's still one loss or one W. And you got to regroup. Regardless of what happened, what's your mindset? Hey, in life, you're either dealing with adversity or dealing with prosperity. And shoot, both of them are hard to handle for people. I think everybody's got examples of that. And then it's how you respond, how you react, what you take from it, what you learn from it. And then they're teeing it up again today in meetings and practice and getting ready for week 2.
I want to stick with meetings for a second, because going into those game plan meetings is something that we on the outside don't really get to see. Going into a game plan meeting, what we saw this last weekend from Aaron Rodgers is just a reminder of what a different breed of animal that guy is at quarterback. You were in the division with him. What do those meetings look like as you're discussing facing Aaron Rodgers and the Green Bay Packers?
I think you realize how tight you got to be and how tight your game. You can't be sloppy. You can't be loose. You got to be on top of your assignment. Because this game it comes down to on what phase. It's what to do, how to do it, which will be the technique that you have to execute, and then be able to do it under pressure. And so, that preparation, I mean, this is coach speak, but, if you fail to prepare, you're preparing to fail. And so, you gotta strip it down and go back and start all over again. And when you get a special player, and there's a lot of special players in this league now. All right. These teams, you never know every one of them is very, very hard to win.
And I guess speaking on the other side of the ball, because quarterback, he's going against the whole defense right now. It's a much more far-reaching thing. The NFC North got a shot of Khalil Mack in the first rattle out of the box with a guy that just came over.
Welcome to the Khalil Mack experience.
Yes.
But as a pass rusher, as a guy that game plan-wise you can address a little more, how do you look out in Khalil Mack and say, we're going to try and bottle that guy up as best we can?
Well, yeah, you got to have a plan. I coached in Denver, and we had Von Miller, and you see all kind of creative things, whether you bump them first, with a tight end or a back chipping that way. I mean, you got to have a plan. Now, you can't do it all day because it sets up, the defense. You don't want always or never. So there's ways to counteract extra help to one guy, things you can do away from him, all right, defensively. So you just got to mix and match, and you can't be the same all the time. You got to keep the other team off guard.
John Fox with us, former head coach in the NFL. Glad to have him on our team this season. John, there are a couple of coaches that I mean, I know it's early, but are kind of on the hot seat heading into week 2. Hugh Jackson, listening to him try and do the mental logic about what a tie meant to his franchise and what a tie didn't mean to his franchise was really kind of funny from as far as like it's a tie. It's a tie. I mean, he's like, I should be happy. I'm not happy. I'm not sad. So he's got to make sure he tries and keep things going because the last thing you want is to start a bunch of losses together, or non-wins rather, after a team that didn't win a game last year. And the other one is John Gruden, who sort of pushed his chips into the table by getting rid of Khalil Mack, and then they get outscored 23-0 in the second half, week 1 at home. How important is it for a coach who might have teams, some of the players are saying, okay, why did we do some of these things? Make sure he establishes that pattern of winning going forward quickly.
Yeah, it's, look, I'll be honest with you, this league's about those close games. And, the Oakland Raiders had the lead at halftime. Yeah. All right. Going back, you saw an example of Cleveland really fighting back. They were down, and they didn't have that losing culture attitude and let it get out of hand. So, I think both those coaches can build on, part of those games. And I think every coach in the league's doing that after week 1. And let's not forget, week 1 it's a different personality. Last season means nothing. It's a new race. Everybody starts at 0. And you have different people on your team. You have different coaches. So it's, not too much can be made. It's going to, I like to look at the first quarter of the season and then people actually, kind of show really what they are over a 4-game spread than a 1-game spread.
Yeah. And those two teams, by the way, going into tough spots. The Browns head to New Orleans and they got to be salty after what Tampa Bay did to them. And then the Raiders got to go to Denver. And, I'll tell you what, if Case Keenum isn't tossing 3 picks a game, watch out for the Denver Broncos now because they've got a running game. They got some big wide receivers, and yes, Von Miller still plays. John, we appreciate you being with us. Thanks so much, sir. We'll talk to you next week.
Sounds good.
John Fox,
have a good day.
Head coach, and glad to have him with us, part of our team.
Remember when you couldn't order a ride at the press of a button? Or get online without hearing this? Or get Domino's delivered to over 150,000 unexpected outdoor locations? Wait, what? Introducing Domino's Hotspots. You can finally get pizza delivered right to the beach, the quad, or the dog park. Not at home? Not a problem. Find a Domino's hotspot near you and get 2 medium 2-topping pizzas delivered for $5.99 each. 2-item minimum. Handmade pan pizzas will be extra. Ask for this limited time offer. Prices, participation, delivery area, and charges may vary. Restrictions apply. Visit Domino's.com for details on Domino's Hotspots.
We got SportsCenter brought to you by California Almonds. You're watching football as hard as it deserves to be watched this season, and we watch football hard as hell around here.
Yeah, buddy.
You need California Almonds. With 6 grams of energy-giving protein, you'll have the stamina for the happy jumps and the angry convulsing. Visit almonds.com. Wow, that's a great domain name to get. Almonds.com and own every day of the season with California Almonds. And stay tuned for Wednesdays with Waddle coming up in the next hour, brought to you by California Almonds. Waddle, big almond guy.
Nicely done. By the way, along those lines, you said almonds.com, strong domain name. When the internet was first taking off, I was in St. Louis and I saw a billboard that said www.paydaybar.com. And I was like, really? A candy bar needs its own website? But now everybody has their own website. So
you're supposed to go and get your own, do you own your own domain name?
No.
You own TreyWingo.com?
No
you're
idea.
supposed to go out and get it so that no one else can go get it and then basically do squatters' rights on your website.
Actually,
name.
Sunday Countdown once did a story about that on Warren Sapp. He tried to get it and somebody else had it and they wanted like $100,000 and Warren was like, no, not paying that for my own name. Get out of here.
Speaking of own name right now, we did your top 5 NFL list that I know we've got some reaction to. I did my top 7 NFC North players. And wow, if I made a mistake. I am getting chirped hard right now. Kyle Rudolph and his wife both letting me have it.
Why?
Leaving him off the list.
Oh, the top 7.
They said apparently I spelled Rudolph Long on this one, so
wow,
not going well for me right now. I hope the reaction for your list has been a little kinder.
Probably not. Do you regret it? Do you regret not putting Kyle on the list?
It probably deserves to be on there. I mean, he's captain for the team. I think he's the longest tenured current Minnesota Viking right now. So
7A, 6B. Where would you put him? In hindsight, if you had to do your list again, where would he be?
We'll just swap Everson out and put Kyle in there. All right?
He had 1 catch on Sunday.
Whoa,
it was
a
a touchdown.
Yeah, okay.
It was a touchdown.
Rudolph's end zone, perhaps you've heard of it.
Here's the other thing. he can't control how many times he's thrown the ball. All he can do is make the catch when the ball comes his way.
Maybe if he was better, he'd get more passes.
A lot of mouths to feed in that offense, Stanzik.
Wow.
A lot of mouths to feed, all right? Not his fault he's a team player. He's not a me-first guy. He's not going to shout at his quarterback.
Were you doing the top 7 guys that are team players or the best players in the NFC North?
All the above, Stanzik. All the above.
I love the fact, the backstroke you're doing now for Kyle Rudolph, just because you got some blowback from Kyle.
It's more because his wife's in my mentions. I mean, I don't want to tick off Jordan.
Okay. No, there you go. We all have our thresholds. So again, I put out the list of the top 5 teams week 1 that I thought just who played the best. It didn't seem to me to be very controversial. It's just who played well. You had to win, and you had to win, and you had to do things the right way. And so some teams were on there, some teams weren't. Some people calling in about that list.
Hey Trey, great job on your list. I'm glad you did that. I see some of that stuff put out there, and thinking, wow. It's kind of like they're looking at the whole season instead of just 1 week at a time. College football does the same thing on their power listing on that. But hey, Trey, great job. Hold your ground there, man. Every week, look at those teams and say who played the best. That's the way to do it.
I got to say, I did not see that coming. Was that Booger McFarland, by the way? It sounded like Booger. So if that was Booger, thanks. I appreciate it.
He was
calling, didn't sound like Booger.
Okay.
Yeah, not at all. But he was calling from his little Monday Night Football booth on top of the roaming sideline cam.
Yeah, again, the parameters I have this week will change week to week. It's not maybe later on in the season we'll get a more, body of work. But week 1 has to be, did you win, and did you win in impressive fashion?
The Stugotz is strong in you, constantly changing parameters week to week.
If the power rankings are a week-to-week thing, they have to change every week. And I don't care what you did last year. Last year means nothing this year.
Nothing.
Because, what is it, every year since 1990, I think, 4 teams in, 4 teams out that didn't make the playoffs the previous year. So last year doesn't matter. It's only about this year and week 1. Another voicemail.
Hey, Trey. Listening to your top 5, and on most points I agree with you, but you got to consider the opponents that these other teams are playing. Detroit sucks. Matthew Stafford's the best player on the team, and that's pretty much it. The other teams that you put in the top 5, yes, they won, but they won against inferior opponents, and that has to factor into the equation in some form or fashion, in my opinion. Anyway, that's my point. Thanks.
I appreciate it. And here's the thing. I have no idea if Detroit sucks or not. I don't. We have no idea if anybody sucks or is great right now. Well, because it'll be played out during the season.
It will. I also kind of like to side with the side where last year doesn't matter. The NFL is a little different because you have so many of the same pieces that come back. Like, we are dealing with largely the same Detroit offense with really more additions than any marquee subtraction. So you can expect some carryover. I understand it'll change a little bit, but those things kind of matter.
They do and they don't. I mean, but at the end of the day, for me, it matters what did you do and how did you play. And I understand what he's saying. Like, for example, the Ravens, the fact that they're on there, people are freaking out. A good team does that to a bad team. That's the definition of what a good team is. You find a way to win in close games, and when you're a better team, you step on their throat. And that's exactly what they did. And for anybody to say those were inferior opponents, we'll find out in 6 weeks whether or not they were inferior. Again, just to recap, last year what happened to the Saints? They went 0-2. They got strafed in the first 2 games by Minnesota up on Monday night, and then New England went down and unleashed holy hell on them because they had lost on the Thursday night game. So I was like, well, the Saints, there they go. They're terrible one more time. Their defense is a sieve. No, Dennis Allen turned it around. They actually were a very productive defense, top 10 defense by the end of the year, and they made the playoffs. Not only did they make the playoffs, they won the division, and they went on to win a playoff game. And they should have probably played in the NFC Championship game had Marcus Williams just played the man instead of the ball and done that, right?
Played to win. He wasn't a throat stepper.
Exactly.
Get him out the paint.
My point being, you can't say anybody is terrible because of week 1. You can say it in week 6. You can't say it in week 1 because it's just a 1-game schedule.
Exactly. It's a 1-game schedule for Kyle Rudolph, Stanzik.
Oh, there it is. And he'll have to do better to get on your list next week. Coming up, the Bears blew that 20-point lead on Sunday. So are they salty in Chicago, or were they encouraged for what they saw from Mitchell Trubisky? We'll ask touchdown Tommy Waddle that, who, by the way, got that name in junior high.
Remember when you couldn't order a ride at the press of a button? Or get online without hearing this? Or get Domino's delivered to over 150,000 unexpected outdoor locations? Wait, what? Introducing Domino's Hotspots. You can finally get pizza delivered right to the beach, the quad, or the dog park. Not at home? Not a problem. Find a Domino's hotspot near you and get 2 medium 2-topping pizzas delivered for $5.99 each. 2-item minimum. Handmade pan pizzas will be extra asked for this limited time offer. Prices, participation, delivery area, and charges may vary. Restrictions apply. Visit Domino's.com for details on Domino's hotspots.
Brought to you by Capital One. Capital One wants to build a better bank, one that feels and acts nothing like a typical bank. It's why they're reimagining banking by offering accounts with no fees or minimums and one of the best savings rates in America. You can open a Capital One account from anywhere in 5 minutes. That's banking reimagined. Capital One, what's in your wallet? Capital One, N.A.
Remember when you couldn't order a ride at the press of a button? Or get online without hearing this? Or get Domino's delivered to over 150,000 unexpected outdoor locations? Wait, what? Introducing Domino's Hotspots. You can finally get pizza delivered right to the beach, the quad, or the dog park. Not at home? Not a problem. Find a Domino's hotspot near you and get 2 medium 2-topping pizzas delivered for $5.99 each. 2-item minimum. Handmade pan pizzas will be extra asked for this limited time offer. Prices, participation, delivery area, and charges may vary. Restrictions apply. Visit Domino's.com for details on Domino's hotspots.
All right, people, listen up. We have a big favor to ask, and we promise it won't take up too much of your time. You know our show is supported by some fantastic sponsors, right? Well, we'd love to hear your feedback. Head to podcast.study and fill out a short, anonymous survey. That's it. We swear. Again, that's podcast.study.
It would be hard to have a game plan for Le'Veon Bell knowing they're putting it in today and he's still not in the facility.
See how my game plan works.
There you go. It's not there. Glad you're with us. Golic and Wingo, ESPN Radio and ESPN News, as always presented by Progressive Insurance. Our phone guests join us on the Shell Pennzoil Performance Line. Mike Golic Jr., Trey Wingo here. The big man, your dad, is taking care of some very important business today.
Yeah, colonoscopy for dad today, so doing the proper maintenance on the body there as you get up there in age, always important. So kudos to dad for taking care of himself. Hope it's going well for him, and in the meantime, sit in the chair and fill in.
And we're delighted to have you here. And again, it's important. This is a thing that is easy to do, and early detection can literally save your life. So make sure you talk to your doctor about when you think you should start having those, and we'll be glad to see Mike back here tomorrow. As we said, we got a lot to get to, and I put together that list, right,
yes,
that people are freaking out about for some reason. It was basically my power rankings for week 1, which basically, did you play well? Did you have a convincing win? If you did that, you got on the list.
And just to refresh everyone on the list, Trey's top 5, number 5, and this is the one that sent rattles through the ether of sports talk radio. The New York Jets, number 5. The Philadelphia Eagles, number 4. Baltimore Ravens at number 3. The Minnesota Vikings at 2. And the Los Angeles Rams at number 1. So that was your list. We threw that out there, and there's been some strong responses.
Some random guy in Florida driving around apparently has called in.
Week 1 power rankings. God bless this show. I love you. Hey, it's Stu on a mobile. First time, long time. Wingo, do me a favor. Take 2 words out of your mouth. Darnold and Jets. Trey, do me a favor. The more people that say good things, great things about the Jets, the more likely it is that they'll get bludgeoned by the Dolphins 34-10 this Sunday at home. Darnold will be walking off the field at halftime, and Jet fans will be screaming, Debo, save us! Darnold, you score! Don't acknowledge it. Don't talk about it. Let it stand over in the corner a little bit. No one really noticing quite yet. Knock it off, Trey. Knock it off right now. Since we're doing week 1 power rankings, here am I. In no particular order except for number 1. Jacksonville, I have the Chiefs, I have the Patriots, and I have, just because he's the greatest ever, I have Aaron Rodgers. Number 1, the New York Jets, baby! The Jets! We got a football team! I got a quarterback! I got a quarterback! Oh, I never listen.
I love the fact that he said, don't jinx it, and then he puts the Jets number 1. It's the most Stugotz thing ever.
You got a quarterback. How can he not be excited right now? He's got a quarterback. He's got a real defense. He's got a football team.
He had a quarterback for week 1. We'll find out. We'll find out. We're going forward.
What, you putting him on IR already?
No, I'm just saying we knew he played well in week 1. We'll find out going forward. By the way, Stugotz, Darnold, Jets, Darnold, Jets.
Fighting words.
So there you go. By the way, we'll see what happens with Dan Lebitard, Joe Stugotz coming up after we're done here on ESPN Radio. But let's start this hour like we always do with what's trending, and what's trending is what has been trending all summer long. The Red Sox won a baseball game. Chris Sale, a scoreless inning in his first start since coming back from the DL. Red Sox became the first team to clinch a playoff spot. Sale allowed a hit, struck out 2, and hit a batter. Boston went on to win 7-2, and they're assured of their 3rd straight postseason, matching the Red Sox record, Junior, of 03-05 and 07-09.
So this is them maxing out, right? Like the Red Sox have to understand they're all in on this year, because as their fans know, this trend, it dies next year. Like they're not making the playoffs.
Wow. You're already putting the kibosh on them?
History not on their side in this one, and we know baseball is nothing if not a historical ground. So
I can't fault you for that because I do play the history card all the time. That's why no one's ever won, and no one, in my opinion, will ever win 3 straight Super Bowls because it's never been done. When it's done, then I'll say it's possible. Until that, it's not possible, and you're right. Until they go 4 straight seasons, we're going to have to say it's impossible for the Boston Red Sox.
For the Red Sox, this not surprising, though. They've essentially been the wire-to-wire number one, boat racing everybody else. The AL East seems like it's been a foregone conclusion really since the start of August, and so finally putting a cap on it, clinching it, making it official is what we all expected.
And with a win tonight, the Red Sox can get their 100th win of the season for the first time since 1946. Well, now, Mike, this I find very interesting. Stung by what they perceive as a lack of institutional support for the chair umpire, Carlos Ramos, who gave Serena Williams a game penalty late in the U.S. Open's women's final, other umpires are reportedly discussing the possibility of boycotting future Serena Williams matches. This is in a story in the Washington Post.
They're also considering forming a union
Yeah.
of the chair umpires, according to a report on Tuesday, in part because they're not allowed to discuss specific matches. So they don't feel like they've been supported by the WTA, the World Tennis Association.
Yes.
In this one, they feel like they haven't had their back throughout this process. I'll say this. The phrase "know your worth" is often propped up there when we talk about relationships. Know your worth. Don't take anything less than that. In this one, it might have a bit of a different connotation. Like, we talk about replacing umpires with robots and stuff all the time.
Yeah.
Tennis, as our friends in Lone Star said, are already there.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, look, we have the IBM or the Cyclops, however you want to call it, and nobody disputes the fact that they get it right or wrong when it's called in or out. And I think this speaks to 2 things here. And again, this Serena Williams discussion is about 2 things. Number one, Serena's behavior, which led to this decision. She has to own that. There's no question about that.
Absolutely.
Number 2, just because you could have doesn't mean you should have. And the way I look at it, unless she was physically threatening to beat him with the tennis racket, there is no way you take a game away from someone in the finals of a Grand Slam. That's just the way I look at it. To me, the referee, the umpire there, should be about trying to diffuse the situation, not putting an accelerant on the situation.
Well, and Trey, you know tennis and have covered tennis much more thoroughly than I ever have or will, but I think even getting it to that point, because you're right, this is a championship setting that we're talking about in a major event, and we've heard the talk of everyone's getting coached. That's happening all over the place in tennis. To call that to begin with, in my mind, and start down this path, because we know the 3-strike rule that led to this point. You get that warning, you get her smashing the racket, which is a strike against, and then you get the verbal confrontation with the chair umpire. I think bringing it down that road to begin with, and how that compares, because a lot's been made about sexism and other things brought into this, how that compares with bringing that up in that setting. Because what do we never want to see in any sport on any grand stage is the referees, the umpires, anyone inserting themselves into a situation where all of a sudden now this match and what was supposed to be a great moment for a young player in tennis now gets all clouded because this became a part of it. And she's certainly at fault, but the official's job is to control the situation regardless of sport.
I completely agree with you. And again, Serena's claim is, listen, as a woman, I'm getting a lot less rope. I'm getting a lot less room to argue as male players. Let me ask you this. Have you ever heard a story where male players who do a lot of berating of officials as well, have you ever heard officials say, hey, we should get together and boycott that guy's matches?
No,
it sort of feeds into what she's saying.
This has certainly taken on a much different life of its own after that. The discussion has been much more prominent because it is Serena also. We're talking about the greatest to ever do what she's done, and so it's always going to get more focus, and because of that, it's been more backlash for these officials, so they feel threatened in all of this, but it's one of those situations where, again, what are you really threatening here that we can't replace with somebody else?
Correct. Again, to me, it's about 2 points. As the greatest of all time, is she given the same latitude as male greatest of all time? I would say no. She has to own her actions. There's no question. But again, just because you could doesn't mean you should have. And again, from my perspective, barring some sort of physical altercation, you do not take a game away from somebody. I don't care who it is in the finals of a Grand Slam. That is the ultimate penalty. And to me, it needed to be much more egregious for that to happen. All right, We continue here on Golic and Wingo. As we said, we are delighted to be joined now by a guy who does a great job for us for Waddle and Silvy in the afternoons on ESPN 1000 in Chicago. It is our own Tom Waddle joining us. Or as I read the promo yesterday, Touchdown Tommy Waddle, and I was on with you guys yesterday, and we found out that was sort of a nickname that stuck, in junior high, was it, Tom?
Oh, it was before that, fellas. That was Pee Wee football. No one has referred to me as Touchdown Tommy Waddle at the high school level, the college level, or the NFL level. So that's going way back in the Wayback Machine. I'm
all about it, though, as far as just so you know, I am all about you being Touchdown Tommy Waddle.
Me too. I am as well. I won't shy away from that. Keep it coming.
All right, you join us on the Shell Pennzoil Performance Line. Speaking of performance, if we're being honest with ourselves, Tommy, what was your evaluation of the performance of the Bears' offense overall in the game Sunday night against Green Bay?
Well, guys, I think it was a true tale of two halves. I thought the first 15 minutes that we saw from Mitchell Trubisky and Matt Nagy was as good a performance as we've seen in this town for quite some time. 15 minutes in, they had accumulated 144 yards and 10 points. Actually, the field goal was the first play of the second half. But, I thought it was as efficient and as impressive as we've seen. I think, what then happened is you mentioned Trey yesterday in the second half, the Packers adjusted. They showed Mitch some different looks. They went to some zones. They made him go through his progressions. They made him read the defense, and you saw the inexperience. I think you saw some of the inexperience of Nagy as a head coach and a play caller. It was very disappointing, but I wasn't devastated when we left. I don't think that game will define either the quarterback or the coach. There were some really good things, but there are certainly some things that they're going to have to clean up, and that's a game you have to win. You can't be up 20-0 with 9 minutes to go in the third quarter on the road against your arch rival and not win that game. So, really, as I mentioned, a tale of two halves.
Tale of two halves in the first one, dominated by Khalil Mack. Tom, you're right there in Chicago. This is a move that a lot of us didn't think was going to get made. A Hall of Fame player traded in his prime. What was the reaction you've seen, and what was your reaction to seeing Khalil Mack on display in a Bears uniform?
But euphoria, collectively and individually for me. I didn't think it was going to happen either, Mike, but not because I didn't think Ryan Pace would pull the trigger. I just didn't think that John Gruden and the Raiders would let their best player, not just their best defensive player, but their best player go. So when it happened, we felt blessed. The football gods were looking down on us, and then you saw what he was able to do in the first half of that game with no preseason. So, as impressed as I was with what I've seen from him in the past years, it was just accentuated in the first 30 minutes of the game Sunday night in Green Bay. And when he gets his football legs underneath him, I think it's going to be a really fun time for a really long time in Chicago. And I think that front seven, when Roquan Smith gets his legs under him and they get a chance to play a little bit together, I think that front seven can be as good as any in the league eventually.
Oh, listen, I don't disagree with you. We're gonna talk about this Chicago front seven now with Khalil Mack in the same way we talk about the Jaguars front seven when it's all said and done. Tom Waddle from Waddle and Silvy joining us now. Tom, give us your sweet player of the week, brought to you by California Almonds. Own your everyday, every day.
Well, it pains me to say this, guys, because I could have easily said Khalil Mack in the game that he had for our Bears, but it was in a losing effort. I think the sweet player of the week has to be Aaron Rodgers. Second half, threw for better than 270 yards, 3 touchdowns, no interceptions, and he did it on one leg. So as difficult as it was to watch as a former Bears player and a Bears fan, you have to marvel at what he was able to do, and I thought he had the best performance of the first week of the season.
So, Tommy, with that in mind, Aaron Rodgers is set to speak to the reporters in Green Bay today. He spoke on the Le Batard show yesterday and talked about everything except the injury, as you would expect. And it was actually a really fun, interesting interview. But listen, there, as Mike McCarthy, the Packers head coach, has said, Tommy, is that we're going through the evaluations, we're going through the tests. As great as the feeling had to be Sunday night for Green Bay, you got to be holding your breath a little bit until you hear exactly what's going on in that left knee of Aaron Rodgers.
No doubt. They're a Super Bowl contender with him. They are not, just to say the least, without him. And look, I'd love to play the role of old school, tough guy and rub some dirt on it. If there's any question at all, I'm not putting him under center against the best defense in football this week in the Vikings. And look, I think that the month of September has just, as Steve Young said at halftime of the Monday night game, I think September has become an extension of the preseason, and teams look at these early games differently. You may agree or you may disagree, but that's the trend in the league. And if there's any question at all, you don't take the best quarterback in the league at this time. Now, we can argue about Tom. I think Tom Brady's the best quarterback of all time, but Aaron Rodgers, to me, checks every box here. I don't put him in harm's way if there's any question at all. I maybe save him with no disrespect to the Redskins and the Bills after that. But he's too valuable a player to that franchise to take any chances.
Talking to Tom Waddle, co-host of Waddle and Silvy, here with us on Golic and Wingo. And Tom, I know we talked about them briefly before, and you mentioned Monday night there, but we saw John Gruden make his debut again as the Raiders head coach. A tale of two halves for him as well. What did you make of his return in coaching and kind of the extension of the preseason? We hear Martavis Bryant might be coming back into town as well.
Difficult. More difficult for those in the black hole than those of us who don't reside in the black hole. I think it's been a difficult few weeks, and I believe he actually, referenced the fact they couldn't put any pressure on Goff in the second half. Well, no kidding, because
I wonder where that could have come from.
He's wearing a Bears uniform. So, look, John has forgotten more football than I'll ever know. But with that said, I was scratching my head when the deal was made, and I think you saw the direct impact of losing one of the top 2 or 3 defensive players in the league on full display on Monday Night Football, and I think they're in for a bit of a rough ride. I'll say this as well. I think people that, get sold on quarterbacks, it's a really difficult, nauseating ride to ride the quarterback roller coaster in the league. Derek Carr, everyone thought was going to be an elite quarterback, and ultimately he may become one of those guys. But, it's so difficult to play that position well for an extended period of time. Dak Prescott had a great rookie year, and then we've seen him struggle a little bit. So, I think that John will try to get the best out of Carr, and I think Carr's in good hands with John as their head coach. But, it's a roller coaster ride for teams that are relying a lot on quarterbacks that you hope are elite.
Tom Waddle with us from Waddle and Silvy on ESPN 1000 in Chicago. Of course, you know him as Touchdown Tommy, or some people did in grade school. You mentioned the idea of what's going on with John Gruden. You say it's going to be a rough ride. Well, listen, they got a week 2 game in Denver, okay, on the road. Denver's a very tough place to play. Von Miller is basically Khalil Mack before Khalil Mack got into the league. So you have that situation going on there. You have the Browns coming off the tie going into New Orleans. They're going to be salty after what happened week 1 where the Bucs put up almost 50 points on that defense. And then you've got your Bears at home now after the loss on Monday night coming up against Seattle. Seattle's going to do everything they can to avoid going 0-2. We've got a lot of teams, Tom, and a lot of coaches that are going to be in the hot seat really quickly to avoid getting in a big hole 2 games into the season. Yeah, I agree with you. But again, Trey, as I said, I think these teams, that there is this trend in the NFL where if we struggle in September, don't worry about it because we'll find our stride at the midway point. And then the last 6 games is really the push we're going to make to try to get to the postseason. Now, can that catch some people, with their proverbial pants down when you get late in the season? That loss early in September that you may have avoided if you were more prepared? Yeah, absolutely it could. But, I think there's less panic about slow starts in this league now than there's ever been before. But certainly, I look at Seattle coming to town here, and my concern is for Russell Wilson's health. He's been running for his life for a couple of years now. He was sacked, as you mentioned, 6 times in Denver. Khalil Mack's going to have, a lot to say about pressuring Russell, and I think that the Seahawks are in a really bad spot here. I think the Bears will learn from some of their mistakes. My anticipation is the Bears will get to 1-1, and the Seahawks will find themselves at 0-2.
Talking to Tom Waddle, co-host of Waddle and Silvy, former Bears wideout. And Tom, we had a lot of quarterbacks either getting new starts or getting starts in new places. Certainly Kirk Cousins, Case Keenum getting starts in new spots, but also Patrick Mahomes. We know you guys have Mitch Trubisky. Who are the quarterbacks that sort of changed scenes or came onto the scene, really jumped off to you in week 1?
I really thought, other than Ryan Fitzpatrick, who I know who's been in Tampa, but my God, that was crazy to watch and good for him. I have to say Kirk Cousins. I watched pretty much every snap of that game, the Vikings and the 49ers, and the stats weren't gaudy, but I thought he really I got acclimated to that offense quite well. I thought having Cook back in the backfield obviously is going to help his cause, but he's got a lot of weapons around him. I thought he made a lot of good throws. There's a ton of pressure on him based on the contract that he signed to come in and be that, that final element that takes them to the top of the mountain. I thought he looked really good. It was great to see Andrew Luck back. It really was, after not seeing him play. They did some nice things there. But, look, I think, Mike, one of the things that was most interesting to me was the number of turnovers. And, again, I go back to a lack of preseason, snaps that guys take. I think there were 5 guys that threw at least 3 picks in a game and 4 guys who threw 2 or more. So you had 9 quarterbacks in the league with multiple interceptions. And I'm not sure that we've seen that over the course of the last several years. So I was a little disappointed what I saw from Jimmy Garoppolo. I'm a huge Garoppolo fan. I think he's got to learn, despite losing McKinnon before the game and losing Goodwin during the game, and a couple of his linemen went down. Jimmy's got to learn that he can't win the game on every snap, especially on the road against that defense. But I still believe he's going to be a very, very good quarterback going forward. But some of the guys you expected to perform well really had a rough week 1.
Yeah, they certainly did. Look, the Monday night losers combined, Derek Carr and Matthew Stafford, to throw 7 interceptions, 4 for Stafford, 3 for Derek. All right, Tom, we appreciate it, bud. Great job on ESPN 1000 in Chicago. We'll talk to you later on.
Thanks, guys. Appreciate it. Have a good day.
By the way, yeah, it may not mean as much, but since the playoffs began, since 1990, you start 0-2, you have an 8% chance of making the playoffs. Only 28 teams. Now, granted, one was last year, the New Orleans Saints, but you have an 8% chance of making the playoffs if you start 0-2.
It's really interesting what he's saying, though, about the changing nature of the first quarter of the season now, because we had a team like the Rams who didn't play their starters in any of the preseason games. So now, even if you're a veteran player getting that sort of deferential treatment, all of a sudden you've got to find a way. How are we changing the calendar? How am I changing my personal clock as a player in order to get myself back into that football mode? Because everyone's goal, it's the most overwrought cliche. In college, you want to play your best ball in November. In the NFL, you want it in December and January. But it's how do you get yourself there with the way that the NFL is changing? And I think that's an interesting trend to note that Tom brought up.
Exactly, which is why the Rams, with hardly starting anybody during the preseason, going on the road week 1 to outscore the home team by 23 points in the second half, they're number 1 in my power ranking.
I want winners. I want people that want to win.
It's really pretty simple. Coming up, there's a coach that you need to know more about, and he needs to be what all our coaches are. We'll get to that, Mike, after this.
After this word from Hims, and I am not reading this first line. I'm not going to do it. You can't make me. What? Oh, okay, they're paying bills. Never mind. All right. Anyway, guys, I got a question for you. Do you want your hairline to recede, or do you want to do something about it first? I'm going to start crying. Don't turn to weird solutions. Been there. Or even worse, do nothing. There now. You need to visit forhims.com. I might honestly go on this website during this ad. One-stop shop for hair loss, skincare, and other wellness supplements for men. Thanks to science, baldness can be optional. Really? It gets worse every step of the way. Hims connects you to real doctors with medical-grade solutions to treat hair loss. They have well-known generic equivalents to name-brand prescriptions to help you keep your hair. No snake oil pills or gas station counter supplements. Instead, prescription solutions backed by science. No waiting room, no awkward doctor visits, no public shame on a radio show. Save hours by going to forhims.com. Just answer a few quick questions. Are you bald? Do you want to not be? Cool. Doctors will review and give you a prescription, and products are shipped directly to your door. Order today, and our listeners get a trial month of Hims for just $5 while supplies last. What about the host of the show? Can I get it for free, guys? Help me! Help me! See website for full details. This would cost hundreds if you went to the doctor or pharmacy. Go to forhims.com/wingo. Wow. That's spelled forhims.com/wingo. Forhims.com/wingo. Back after this. It's Golic and Wingo.
Support for the Golic and Wingo Show podcast comes from our friends at Rocket Mortgage by Quicken Loans. Let's talk about buying homes for a minute. Because of rising interest rates, there's a lot of unpredictability when it comes to buying a home these days. It's causing a whole lot of anxiety with folks. Well, our friends at Quicken Loans are doing something about it. They're calling it the power buying process, and here's how it works. Quicken Loans will verify your income, assets, and credit in less than 24 hours to give you a verified approval. This gives you the strength of a cash buyer. Then once you're verified, you qualify for their all-new exclusive Rate Shield approval. First, they lock your rate for up to 90 days while you shop. Now here's the best part. If rates go up, your rate stays the same. But if rates go down, your rate also drops. You win either way. It's the kind of thinking you'd expect from America's largest mortgage lender. To get started, go to rocketmortgage.com/Golic. Rate Shield approval only valid on certain 30-year purchase transactions. Additional conditions or exclusions may apply. Based on Quicken Loans data in comparison to public data record. Equal housing lender. Licensed in all 50 states. NMLSconsumeraccess.org number 3030.
When it comes to hiring, you don't have time to waste. You need help getting to your short list of qualified candidates fast. That's why you need Indeed.com. Post a job in minutes, set up screener questions, then zero in on qualified candidates using an intuitive online dashboard. And when you need to hire fast, accelerate your results with sponsored jobs. New users can try for free at Indeed.com/podcast. That's Indeed.com/podcast. Terms, conditions, and quality standards apply.
All right, Golic and Wingo, presented by Progressive Insurance. Our phone guests join us on the Shell Pennzoil Performance Line. Before we get into Ultimate Football Guy, I'm not reporting anything. I'm just commenting on a picture on Twitter. Okay, I'm just commenting on it that I find interesting.
Oh, boy.
It was posted by Mike Fisher, who is a Cowboys insider. And it's a picture.
Does he have a blue check?
He does indeed have a blue check.
All right.
It is a picture of Jerry Jones at AT&T Stadium at a Beyonce concert.
So to be clear, we're not reporting.
No.
Des Bryant was with Jerry Jones at Beyonce. It's not a report.
Not a report.
No, we're just saying there's a picture on Twitter on Mike Fisher's Twitter account. Who is
just want to clarify, we're not reporting.
No.
So we're not reporting this.
We're not reporting it.
Okay.
But there's a picture.
Not a report.
I see on Twitter, on Mike Fisher's Cowboy Insider's Twitter page, of Jerry Jones at a Beyonce concert at AT&T Stadium. Sitting next to him is Des Bryant.
We're just commenting because it's not a report.
That's a good picture.
We would never report it. We're just commenting.
There seem to be people dancing in the background.
Like if this was on Instagram, I would just like it, but I wouldn't comment on it because it's not a report.
I'm just, hey, look, there's a picture.
It's just there.
It's just a picture.
Just taking it in.
I like
scrolling through the timeline.
I like interesting pictures. I like interesting pictures about football. I like interesting facts about football coaches.
Oh, yeah. Big football guy.
And, everyone tries to be the football guy. No one is going to top this guy for being the football guy. As we know, Junior, Pitt had a bad loss on Saturday. They lost to Penn State 51-6. Now, I'd be curious if our fine researcher, Justin Page, come all the things that the tight ends for Pitt did or did not do in that game. Maybe what they did, because what they didn't do would be kind of hard to find in a box score. But since that loss, Pitt assistant coach Tim Salem says he hasn't left his office. And he was asked about how he reacts to a loss like that, Junior, and let's just say this is the guy you want coaching your football team at all positions.
At all costs.
At all costs, at all times.
So here's what he said. Thank you for handing me that.
You're welcome.
When a team loses a game like last Saturday, what does it do to a coach's workload for the following week? That was the simple question he was asked, and here's the response. I haven't slept since the game, if that's what you're asking. Really. I've been in this building since 7 a.m. on Sunday. I haven't left. I worked yesterday in this building for like 18 hours, and I slept here. That's just the way it is. I think sometimes when you play games and you lose a game, a little bit of you is died. You do somewhat die when you lose a game. To recover from a game like that, you just have to turn the page and buckle up for the next game. It's a new game. A little part of you dies. Like, that is the man you want to go into game week with.
Right. But it's true, right? I mean, how the question becomes, because football is not a game. You know that there's that video, music video from Kenny Chesney, The Boys of Fall. Right?
Oh, yeah.
And that high school coach, football is an emotional game. You can't play it without emotion. Whether you want to believe that or not, it's absolutely true. You can't be flat and play a football game because you will be flat on your back pretty quickly if you do that.
You will. You'll be flat like the sodas that this coach drinks. This is a tweet from Craig Meyer who said, Pitt tight ends coach Tim Salem, the man who opens a Mountain Dew and leaves it in the fridge overnight to enjoy it flat the next morning. This is the kind of savage that we're dealing with right here. You don't get to this place where you're sleeping for hours on end in your office, grinding through tape, getting ready for a new week of practice without being a little bit off, and a flat Mountain Dew guy is just off enough for my liking.
So here's the question, Stanzik, have we called his office to see if he's actually in the office?
No, but we can.
Well, if he says he's there, he hasn't left the office. Right.
And see, you know what? In a classic football guy way, he's probably not going to want to talk about a lot about himself. Feel like we need to get their head coach, Pat Narduzzi, on the line and just see if we can dive into the kind of man we're dealing with here. What's he like to coach with? What's he like to be around? What is he like with the players? Because this is a level of commitment that I'm not sure. I mean, are the rest of the people in the building matching this energy?
I don't know, but they should be. By the way, one of the reasons he might be doing this, our fine researcher, Justin Page, against Penn State, Pitt tight ends, 0 receptions. 0 receptions. We're trying to figure out a way to get the tight ends more involved in the Pitt Panther offense. Louis Riddick would approve of this, by the way.
He would, absolutely. Proud Pitt alum. And so he was asked another question, and this sheds even more light on the kind of mindset we've got here. They followed up and said, you've been here since Sunday morning. If you'd won Saturday night, would you still have done that? And he said, I'd still be here. When I go home late at night, it's, honey, can you change the light bulb? Can you move this out of the garage? No, I don't want to change no light bulbs. I'm not moving nothing in the garage. So I don't want to go home. I don't have to do that stuff. The honey-do list is gone because I'm not there. This is my sanctuary right here. You got to try it. It'll work. This became an advice column very quickly.
Yeah. I just, do we admire his singular focus or question his life choices?
Well, that's all going to depend because eventually he's got a wife, Wendy. He's got 2 sons and a daughter. He's got people to answer to. And Trey, you're a married man. You know this.
Yeah.
Everyone's got a boss. We all answer to somebody.
Yeah.
And so he's eventually going to have to answer to his wife if he hasn't already. And that's where I feel like this might be the miscalculation in his football guy game plan here.
Well, it's like that story Joe Gibbs used to tell when he was the head coach of the Washington Redskins. He'd sleep at the office a lot, then come home and go to sleep. And he went in to kiss one of his kids good night as he was asleep, and he went down to kiss him. He's like, when did that happen? He has a beard. You live in this singular focus world. Things can move by you pretty quickly. So on one level, we celebrate Tim Salem, the Pitt tight end coach at the University of Pittsburgh after a devastating loss. But the tunnel vision is strong in him, and he is our nominee for the ultimate football guy, right? He has to be.
I feel like they give football guy of the year out somewhere.
They do. They do.
We might be getting a cease and desist.
We probably will. Coming up, based purely on Week 1 performances, the Jets are a top 5 team in the NFL for this week. That's all we're saying for this week. We'll explain more, Mike, after this.
Remember when you couldn't order a ride at the press of a button? Or get online without hearing this? Or get Domino's delivered to over 150,000 unexpected outdoor locations? Wait, what? Introducing Domino's Hotspots. You can finally get pizza delivered right to the beach, the quad, or the dog park. Not at home? Not a problem. Find a Domino's hotspot near you and get 2 medium 2-topping pizzas delivered for $5.99 each. 2-item minimum. Handmade pan pizzas will be extra asked for this limited time offer. Prices, participation, delivery area, and charges may vary. Restrictions apply. Visit Domino's.com for details on Domino's hotspots.
Golic and Wingo is presented by DraftKings. This weekend, DraftKings has over $2 million in total prizes. Get the app or go to DraftKings.com and use the code Golic to enter a contest for free this weekend with your first deposit. Minimum $5 deposits required. Eligibility restrictions apply. See DraftKings.com for details.
All right, Golic and Wingo here with you on a Wednesday. And again, don't forget the Seattle Storm look to close out the Mystics in D.C. tonight during Game 3 of the WNBA Finals. You can see it ESPN2, 8 Eastern. But the Storm have yet to win on the road in the playoffs, despite posting the best road record in the regular season. The other thing here is that just how amazing Sue Bird has been in this series. I mean, our guy Herm Edwards says leave it on the grass. Sue Bird is leaving it on the floor of the court each and every night.
Absolutely been a really compelling series. So one to check out tonight, Unstoppable Force and Movable Objects, the sweep or finally a road win here in a way that's evaded them thus far.
And again, this is the Mystics looking for their first WNBA championship and the first win in this series. Seattle trying to pull off the trifecta. They've been in the finals twice before and come up with the win. They're going for a 3-for-3, and they can close it out tonight. Okay, so as we said earlier in the show, Mike, the ESPN.com Power Rankings come out every week, and there's over 70 people that contribute, and they have their own criteria. I have different criteria, and I rank my top 5 teams. And one of the things, you had to win to be able. I mean, there are some teams that lost and are above teams that won, and that just makes no sense to me because everything is a week-to-week season, and what happened last year shouldn't count at all. So it's about a brand-new season, and we had John Fox in here earlier saying that basically it's 16 one-week season, so that's the principle with which I applied. Did they play well week 1? They were on the list. Do we want to run through the list one more time? Do we have it all?
Oh, yeah.
All right, number 5 was the Jets. Number 4 was the Eagles. Number 3 was the Ravens. Number 2 was the Vikings. And number 1 was the Rams.
Just to be clear, none of those are a different language for Patriots, so that would assume that they're not in your top 5.
In terms of how they played week 1. That's all. I still have the Patriots winning the division. I still have the Patriots as my AFC representative in the Super Bowl. This is who played best week 1. And people are weighing in with wild thoughts.
Trey, you got to slow your roll about the Jets. Sam Darnold is not sliced bread. He is only a rookie. He is inevitably going to hit that rookie wall, and then we can revisit just how quote-unquote great he may be.
Well, thanks for not understanding the premise at all.
Oh.
Because basically what we said was, how'd they play week 1? And I didn't rate a person, I ranked a team. The Jets got offensive touchdowns, defensive touchdowns, and special team touchdowns in week 1. They were tied on the road at 17 and reeled off 31 straight points to win the game. Nowhere in that rank of the Jets did I say Sam Darnold is the next this or that. I didn't say any of that. I said the Jets put together a dominant performance week 1, and they deserve to be on the list. It's pretty simple.
So really, your list is almost more of a list of week 1 performances than it is a list of the actual best teams in the NFL.
What else can it be?
Well, I mean, you can look at a team and the way they play over the course of a game and kind of understand based on the known commodities on that team how they would probably stack up against other teams.
Okay, so this is the foxhole people fall into when they look at the schedule come out. And they base this year's schedule on the win-loss percentage of last year.
Listen, I fully get strength of schedule. It is a flawed model right now. It is one that is due for an update, and I know people that are efforting that and will probably do a great job. But that being said, you still understand the NFL is so different from college football in the fact that year to year, you have much more continuity with a lot of these teams. Now, there is some roster turnover, but in general, your core pieces, the quarterbacks, the prime weapons on offense, when they turn over year to year, you can kind of surmise then what to expect from that particular group. And so I don't think anyone would look at this list and say they believe the Jets are better than, let's say, the Saints or the Patriots. No one's saying that. Or anyone like that.
They put together a dominant performance week 1. I thought it was one of the best 5 performances. That's it.
So it's a top, it's a top performances list. It's not the top teams.
That's all it can be. That's all it can be week 1.
You can know that they're not a top 5 team in the NFL after week 1.
You can know that after 5 weeks.
Well, I mean, I can know that right now that the Jets aren't a top 5 team.
Well, here's the flaw in that argument. Last year, after 2 weeks, the Saints were 0-2 and got beat up bad in Minnesota and home by the Patriots. Did you say last year, they're definitely going to win the division?
No.
Okay, so you can only go by what has happened. That's it. That's all there is.
But again, then by that, so then you're saying the Jets are one of the 5 best teams in the NFL.
I said the Jets had one of the 5 best performances of the week.
Well, then, so my argument can still work.
It's not an argument. It's not an argument. That's all we have. I mean, again, week 1 to be on the list.
I want winners. I want people that want to win.
There it is.
I want good teams, and I want the Saints in my top 5.
Well, okay.
And the Patriots.
They probably should have won the game then. They probably shouldn't have let Tampa Bay.
Maybe even the Bucs at this point. I feel like if you're really going to do the list your way, the Bucs have the biggest gripe with you in all this, and really Ryan Fitzpatrick is going to write you a very eloquent and sternly worded letter.
And probably have math problems in it. Speaking of the Bucs.
Philly won at home against Atlanta. Tampa Bay wins at New Orleans, scores 48 with a backup quarterback. Tampa Bay should be in there.
Totally illogical argument. I can't argue against it. They were probably 6th or 7th on my list. That's it.
Sorry, I had to finish the Haagen-Dazs bar that they sent us. It was melting.
And again, the only thing that I could knock the Tampa Bay Bucs for is that they were up big in that game, and it came down to a 1-possession game.
Yeah, I mean, you also factor in they were going against one of the better offenses in the league that we've seen for a long while, and that I don't feel like you can dispute. A Drew Brees-led New Orleans offense is about as known a commodity in the NFL as exists.
By the way, to that point, Ryan Fitzpatrick was just named the NFC Offensive Player of the Week for Week 1.
And deservedly so.
Deservedly so.
That's the classic fit. That is the true. The Fitz magic is being able to produce timely performances that continue to result in years of NFL paychecks.
And why Fitz magic is the perfect name for Ryan Fitzpatrick, because he will put together these magical performances for several weeks at a time. But what's another key component of magic is disappearing. And sometimes those performances quickly disappear with Ryan Fitzpatrick as well. So congratulations to Ryan Fitzpatrick. Congratulations to those on the list. And if you weren't on the list, it's just a list.
Better luck next week.
There you go, because you know what?
I want winners. I want people that want to win.
When you get on the list. Next week, Chris Canty, Terry Bradshaw. Tomorrow, Stu Gatz and Stephen A. Smith. You can book it.
You can book it.
Yeah.
Remember when you couldn't order a ride at the press of a button? Or get online without hearing this? Or get Domino's delivered to over 150,000 unexpected outdoor locations? Wait, what? Introducing Domino's Hotspots. You can finally get pizza delivered